When I've suggested that homeschooling is a realistic solution for many families languishing away in public schools they are dissatisfied with, some have blown me off, saying that homeschooling is anecdotal. It works for some, but not for the masses who either, due to circumstances or financial access, cannot homeschool. But what if we reimagine school itself? What if we could take some of the freedom we enjoy in homeschooling and translate it to a school setting that encouraged creativity, exploration, and innovation? What if there was a way for students from various socioeconomic backgrounds to flourish under a new paradigm of education? Tune in as I chat with the founder of the Genius School, Ms. Karima Akila. We'll be discussing what makes the Genius School unique and why self democratic schools may be the future of education. All right, so I am so happy to have Karima Akila here today. I have been wanting to do an interview with her for a very long time because she is a mover and a shaker, and she's innovative, and I'm just in love with the Genius School. And so today I am going to be interviewing her about the Genius School and just her education philosophy and whatnot. And so I'm going to read her bio. Karima Akila is a creative problem solver and visionary who sees the invisible, touches the intangible, hears the inaudible, and is working to do the impossible. Karima Akila is a curious entree edupreneur who analytically interprets content to facilitate and lead others bravely into fresh experiences. She believes in purpose, lives life on purpose, and loves others to their purpose. Karima Akila is mama to the half dozen, four boys and two girls, including the older two who have graduated from homeschool. Karima had to deschool the bachelor in elementary education out of her before she could enjoy the freedom that unschooling brings. While unschooling her half dozen, Karima saw the challenge of changing her own mindset, deprogramming the indoctrination of school. She also noticed how alive her kids were after being supported in their own interest. When other parents began asking her to open a school so their kids could explore this way of learning, the idea of the Genius School was born. Her interests include, but are by no means limited to, playing with children, reading material that requires a dictionary, international travel, writing in cute leather bound notebooks, boating, and laying on the hammock with the kids, making shapes out of clouds. I love it. Okay, so Karima, I want to ask you. So I went on your website for the Genius School, and I'm going to post the links in the description for that and also display it on the screen. But what is self directed learning and what is the Genius School?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I have to say, Kendra, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. When you were reading that bio, I was like, who's she talking about? So thank you so much for honoring me to be here with you on your platform. What is self directed learning? Self directed learning, I want to also state that it is synonymous with unschooling. It means the same thing. So, at the root of what it is non compulsory learning, which means that instead of saying that you must sit down right now and do this phonics, do this math, this science, instead, it is built upon the belief that humans acquire knowledge by means of being curious or when we see the relevance of something or simply because we love it. So oftentimes you will hear people say that self-directed learning is following the interests of the kids. And while that's true, what we run the risk of sometimes is still mandating that the children do something, when they do it, and how they do it. So self directed learning places the child as the curriculum. The child becomes the guide, telling us the when, the what, and the how, and the if of learning. So that's what self directed learning is, or unschooling. And you asked what the genius school is. Is that right?
Yes.
So, the Genius School is simply a place where children can come and do just that. So, when I went through my deschooling process, which was like walking on a tightrope, so I was leaving behind schoolish expectations and I was walking towards this glorious freedom that everyone told me about. Well, that bridge is called deschooling. My bridge on the deschooling path was not safe and sturdy. I have a whole degree in schoolish expectations, right? I was a public school teacher. My bridge was like a tightrope with, vultures swirling overhead and crocodiles at my feet with piranhas in the water snapping at my feet. Okay. It was torturous. So when I got on the other side of that bridge and I was in this world of freedom and passion and curiosity and trust, I began consulting other families, showing them how they too can create these learning spaces. It was during one of those consultations, Kendra, with a single mom. At the time, I was a recent widow. My husband had just recently passed away from leukemia. Now I'm a widowed single mom of 6 kids. And so it was during a consultation with this other single mom when she heard about unschooling and what it was, and she saw what it would provide for her son, she began to cry. And she said, "This would save my baby because he doesn't fit in this system where he's at right now." She said, "Don't you want to start a school?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to start a school. No, I don't. I've never done that before. I don't know how to do that. That sounds crazy hard. No, I really, sorry, but no, I don't want to start a school." But I could not ignore her tears. I could not ignore the other families that came to me with the same exact emotional response. And so I said, I'm going to give the students the same thing. I'm going to give myself the same thing that I give the students. I'm going to allow myself to be curious and to learn something. So the Genius School is a physical place as well as a virtual space where children can be supported as they explore their interests. They are supported by the adults in each of the Genius School locations as they figure out what their genius is. And at the root of it, it is built upon liberation parenting, liberation learning, and our 5 pillar invitation. So that's what the Genius School is.
Okay, and so before we go to be asking you about what your 5 pillars are, where are you located? Like, so what are the virtual locations? Because this has the possibility to spread across the nation, right? So where are you located?
So the Genius School can be, and it is, wherever there is an interest and wherever there is a person that says, I will be the stakeholder, meaning I will be the genius director. So right now, we have people who are licensed genius directors in Atlanta, Georgia, in 2 places in Atlanta, almost 3 places now in Georgia. Then there's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Maryland. We have communities that are building and growing in York, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., California, Michigan, Indianapolis. We have other communities that are beginning, meaning there is one genius director that has raised their hand to say, I want to create liberation based learning. We have those locations in Alberta, Canada, and Ontario, Canada. And we have 2 communities in Kampala, Uganda.
Wow. So in Africa now. This is going across the Atlantic.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Awesome.
And I want to be clear about what is going across the Atlantic.
Okay.
What is going across the Atlantic? What is going from East Coast to West Coast? What is going into Canada and possibly almost into Mexico? What is going is the possibility that parents are saying that they really want. When I sit down with parents, Kendra, I begin with 3 questions. What are you doing in this area that's not working? What do you have? Who are you being about it? I just sat down with some parents right before we got on this call, and they told me that they are being upset, they're being bored, their kids are feeling like a failure. They told me that they are being frustrated and annoyed and angry. They're worried, they're anxious. When I asked them what's missing that would make a difference, when I asked them, who do your kids never get to be? Who do you never get to be? They told me, my kid never gets to be curious. I never get to be confident. We never get to be connected with other people who are doing this. They never get to be passionate or supported as they pursue their interests. So, Kendra, that is what's going across the Atlantic. The opportunity to be free, to be curious, to be supported, to be confident. That is what parents are creating wherever there is a desire.
And that is an important thing that you mentioned, because that's a key discussion among homeschooling parents in general is, how do I become confident? How do my kids become confident? And so you're providing answers where a lot of times there is doubt and there's discomfort. And so now let me ask you, what are the 5 pillars of the Genius School?
Well, these 5 pillars. Let me tell you about these 5 pillars. First of all, I have 6 kids, right? And now I have three. I need to update that bio. Now I have 3 kids that have graduated. I've just graduated my third one from unschooling. So the 5 pillars came about as these children were leaving home. And so I said, okay, now you're 18. I'm not kicking you out, but the government says that you can leave and I don't have to go find you. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to go get you. So, what do you need in order to be supported as you make your way into adulthood? So, I sat in my suburban office, which is the back of my suburban. I sat in my suburban office and I said, okay, what is it that I can offer them? And so the 5 pillars are simply a scaffolding. They are 5 pillar invitations. Nothing here is mandatory. I can't mandate that you fall in love with something. I can't mandate you see the importance. I can only offer it as an invitation. So, pillar one is know thyself. Students are invited to figure out what is your genius? What are you good at? And you figure that out by simply doing something that you say you enjoy, you do well, and you're proud of. We call that a good experience. So, for instance, my 18-year-old, the kid that just graduated, out back, he was building a log cabin, something that he initiated. He went on YouTube and watched videos on how to do such a thing, and he got his tools together and cut down some little trees out here in the woods. And he built himself a log cabin, right? He enjoyed it, he did it well, and he's proud of it. Now, as a result of that good experience, he took a picture of it, somebody posted it on Instagram. Right now, boyfriend is working a whole entire full time job with benefits and 401k, the whole nine, simply because someone else saw his genius, because he was supported in creating a good experience. So, number one, pillar one, know thyself. Pillar two, know your source. During the time that my husband passed away, I saw the importance of mental and emotional well being. We all talk about it. Some of us, many of us, are doing something about it. I was not until that point. Now I see the benefit of knowing how to access tools to help you to maintain your mental and emotional well being. So, students and their families are invited to come and learn about meditation, mindfulness, yoga, Psyche, or any other practice that helps you to maintain mental and emotional well being. Pillar three, know how to make your own money. I'm going to
Okay.
say say that again. Know how to make your own money. And so students are invited to learn about, how do we make money? How does money work? You learn that by playing games. So young ones can play Monopoly, older ones can play Cash Flow 101, which is a board game created by Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. In our student corporations, students learn how to raise money. How do you raise capital for something that you need, right? We also learn about job readiness. When you turn 18, what are you going to do, right? Because you're not going to be sitting on my sofa eating cereal at 2 o'clock. So what you going to do? Okay, so a business owner can come into the school and prepare the kids for to be an employee. We also learn about entrepreneurship. Pillar number 4, know thy world. Students are invited to learn about the cultural and historical events and places in their own backyard, but they do this autonomously. So
Mhm.
13 and 14-year-olds and older receive a skeleton itinerary, and then they work together to research and plan their day. Then the idea is you walk out your front door without your parents, and you use public transportation if it is where you live, and you make your way to the event, and you meet up with the other students, and you tour the space and complete the itinerary. This is called a metro journey that a very dear friend of mine created in Washington, D.C. Then you come back home and you document your time. You create a blog, right? Pillar 5 is know how to serve your community with your genius. So the genius director will go to the community and find a community leader. Come into the school and do what's called a reverse pitch. Pitch us your problem. And then we invite the genius school students to solve it. First, starting with the little itty bitties. Give it to the little ones, the 5-year-olds, right? Full of imagination and innovation. Let them solve it, right? Then you take whatever they say. I don't care how crazy it is, whatever they say, you give it to the kids who are a little bit older, right? 8 or 9, maybe 10. Let them put some reality around that bad boy, right? Then you kick that to the high schoolers. And the high schoolers are responsible for keeping most of what everyone else has said, but then create a product or a service, wrap it in a system known as a business, and now kick that back out to your community. When you do that, you close the return on investment in education. Now you get to see the actual value of play. When your little ones are playing, you just think they're playing. When they're on Roblox, you just think they're on Roblox, right? Wasting time. No, no. Let them, if they want to, take this problem into Roblox and create a solution. Now you get to see what it is that your kids can actually do using the very best of themselves. So those are our 5 pillars. 5 pillar invitation.
That is awesome. That fifth pillar is one of the things that I am super impressed with because two reasons. I love how you discuss incorporating all age groups, right? That they have something valuable to contribute, but also because you mentioned community and how you can serve the community. And I think that that is something that is extremely important for us to desire for our kids as the next generation. And that leads me to a question about the impact of the Genius School on the community because um, there's talk of critical race theory and red states like where I live in Texas trying to stifle conversation surrounding race and pretty much anything that has to do with people of color in history and their contributions, and they can just kind of brush it all under this critical race theory monster that they've created.
Mhm.
um but there is also the issue of education not fitting, the public school education not fitting so many of our black and brown children. And so I'm asking you, as an innovator, how do you see the Genius School impacting the needs of black and brown children within the community, and what do you hope to see them, how do you hope to see them impact the community?
Mm, such a great question and so multi layered. But I'm going to go straight to the jugular, okay? And I'm going to answer your question directly. I don't operate in the current system. I don't operate in that system at all, right? The world that I live in, that system is over there. And it is what it is. And for those that it works, it works. For those that it don't, come on. And so over here, we go directly to Black and Brown communities and we ask them, what is it that you want? Now, I want to be crystal clear. The Genius School is joining other self directed learning spaces. You have Sudbury schools, you have Agile Learning Centers, right? These are the two types of communities, and other freedom schools. These are the other communities that are fully self directed. So the Genius School is joining that group. However, historically, these groups have marginalized certain communities. One of the four main problems of these types of schools is lack of awareness, lack of diversity, lack of funding, and lack of documentation. And we've created a solution for all four. So, beginning with lack of diversity, that ties in with lack of awareness. Many times, Black and Brown communities are left out of the conversation. So, just how we talk about deschooling and how we don't do things to the children, we do things with the children. Instead of creating spaces that do things to Black and Brown folks, how about we sit down at the table and ask Black and Brown folks, what is it that you want?
Oh, can I get an amen from? Okay, yes.
What is it that you want? Right? And so here I am. I'm Black and Brown, been Black and Brown my whole entire life. Will die Black and Brown. But even I don't know all of the exact issues in every Black and Brown community. So what do? I sit down and I listen and I ask them, how could a self-directed learning environment benefit you? So in this space, the children can learn whatever they want to learn, whatever they want to learn. So that's number one. Number two, how can, and I think you asked me, how can this school affect Black and Brown communities? Is that right?
Yes. Mhm.
So, again, pillar number five. First of all, because the Genius School is decentralized, meaning that it can be wherever there is a desire. If there is a desire to have a Genius School in a predominantly Black and Brown community, then right there, front and center, we are inviting the leaders of that community to come in here and voice your concerns and then have that relationship with the children. It's not something where the kids are seen and unheard. No, 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 no. The children become the focal point of the community because they're the ones that's going to inherit this bad boy when we're no longer here.
Mhm.
So I don't do things to Black and Brown folk, just like I wouldn't want someone to do something to me. Instead, I want to say, here is something that might work for you. You tried all this other stuff. You tried public school. How long you gonna let your baby sit in there and be ignored or be frustrated and something that doesn't work for them? Instead, see what it is that self-directed learning can do for you. Okay, great. Now you see something of interest. Now, what is it that is a hurdle for you? Because I get it, and I want to be crystal clear here, Kendra. Because see, now, you done got me up on my soapbox.
Get on the
So
soapbox.
let me take my pearls off for this one. So listen, the problem is Black and Brown communities have an additional hurdle that we have to cross, right? So I've had Black women say to me, older Black women like my grandmother's age, say to me, baby, you mean to tell me your baby's not in this public school over here? Don't you know that we marched for them to go to that public school? Don't you know that we were lynched and had dogs set on us so that you can have the? I said, thank you, ma'am. I know that. Thank you. And I appreciate the work that you did in the sacrifice. So that's hurdle number one. So, hurdle number two, not only is my baby not in this traditional public school, now, and not only are we traditionally homeschooling, now I'm talking about unschooling and I'm giving you voice. I'm sorry. I had a voice grow. I wish I would try and exercise my voice growing up. I would get my voice and my teeth off the floor. So now we're talking about in the unschooling space, providing this degree of freedom and collaboration with our children, where our children have voice and they have choices, and we bring them into the conversation. In some Black and Brown communities, that is an additional hurdle to cross. And so, what I don't do is skip over the impact of that. No, I go straight to the point. And I say, I know you might need some support as you are offering unschooling to your Black and Brown babies. So come on over here, go to other communities that also offer support and coaching. Liberation based parenting coaching is a necessity in Black and Brown families, those of whom, not all of us, but a lot of us that did not experience that degree of freedom. So I'm gonna come back down off my soapbox. But to answer your question, yes, the community is directly tied into each Genius School community because we ask the community, what is it and how can this group of students best serve?
And I think what you said about, um, you know, kids having a buy-in and kids having a central voice, and parents coming alongside to support them in whatever their interest is important because it is a paradigm shift. It is viewing our children as individuals and as people, and it's their life. You know, we as parents have been given, well, we're the role or the authority to be parents until we'll always be their parents, but in terms of that traditional, I guess, parental authority figure until 18. But it's like those are training wheels. Eventually, those training wheels have to come off. And so
Yes,
we might as well start trying to get them to think for themselves and get them to know themselves better.
yeah, and I also want to put in here too, because I already see the emails that's going to be flooding my inbox with parents that are saying, okay, so what about my 3-year-old? Like, how do I unschool my. Okay, pause and stop. Full stop, ma'am, sir. If you have a 3-year-old, yes, you can bring them into the conversation and offer them choice. And you still need to be the adult in that situation because that 3-year-old, that 4 or 5-year-old, or that neurodiverse child, let me also be clear and gather everybody together. That neurodiverse child at 13 might not have the physical capabilities in order to, or the mental capabilities in order to govern themselves. And so it's not a one size fits all, but it is a goal. It is, let me give you as much freedom as I can give you right now, as I can give you right now, and as much freedom that is in integrity for you to have in the first place. I'm not going to give my 3-year-old freedom to walk down the street and know that he know how to cross the street if I haven't taught him that. So all of that must be in consideration. I want to say that because Kendra, I'm gonna get the emails. Well, how do I know, man?
Yes. Well, okay. And so, two more questions that I have for you. So, what does a typical day look like? Because that's something else that I think I want to reiterate. You've alluded to it, you've said it, but what does a typical day look like? Because we are so used to creating a routine or a system. And what you're talking about with the Genius School actually kind of busts all that up.
So, do you mean a typical day with my family, or do you mean a typical day at the Genius School?
A typical day at the Genius School. So, what does
Oh,
that look like?
yes. Okay. So, a typical day, I can tell you what's in place. So, students come into the building and you begin with a spawn point. So, if your kids play Minecraft, they know exactly what that means. So, you begin with a spawn point. This is where we would group the children by age. And the only time that we would group the children by age is in their spawn points. So you come into the building, you go to your spawn point, which is like our back in the day homeroom, if you will.
Hmm.
And in your spawn point, you state your intentions for the day. What is it that you want to do that day? And your facilitator is there to help you navigate that space, especially for our younger children that may, for the first time, not be with mom and dad and might need some help navigating into, spaces with other kids. So then after your spawn point, the rest of the day is like a university model. So imagine when you're in college, right? You have your schedule, your personal schedule might be different than your girlfriend's, you know what I'm saying? And you get to follow the schedule that you've created for yourself. So, what could be on that schedule? So, remember, I think I mentioned our student corporations. So,
Mhm.
whatever your interests are, they are grouped in corporations. This is something that we've adopted from Sudbury schools. So, you could be a part of the art corporation, the cooking corporation, the auto mechanic corporation, the Roblox corporation, the media corporation, the music corporation. The corporations are endless, right? And so you might say, all right, well, let's see. I have 4 things scheduled today. I've signed up for the math corporation because I want to brush up on some algebra. This is what my son would say because I want to be an engineer, so I got to get that tight. All right, so I'm gonna do that. Then 2 hours after that, I have a technology corporation where I'm gonna help some kids with some coding and work on this thing that I was doing. Then I showed some kids, promised them that I would meet them in the gaming corporation because they was out here bragging in these streets that they was better than me, so I got to go. And then, oh, we have our community meeting at the end of this day. This is our mandatory community set the week meeting where all of the corporations come together and create our calendar. Number one. Number two, we discuss what it is that we are aware of that's not working, and we create something to implement to address what's not working. And number two, and then number three, our director is bringing in Mr. Jones from the community here to come and pitch us a problem. So that's my day. Now, in between all of that, I'm gonna be outside shooting some hoops. I might be working with my Metro Journeys group to plan the next Metro Journey. Oh, we got this new soda machine, so I might sit down and try this new soda machine that we got over here. And then, there's this really cute girl that's around there. I might try and holler at her. So all of that can happen in a day. At the end of the day, that same student would go back into their spawn point and they would reflect upon their intentions. Did you meet your intention? Did you show up at, the gaming corporation? Oh, you ain't quite do that well on that game. How you feel about that? Did you show up at the coding corporation? What did you do? And then you share what are you grateful for? So, in between that day and in between that week, students are invited to learn about the 5 pillars. Older students can participate in dual enrollment. Students that have a job may say, hey, look, I'm going to be working in the morning, but I'm going to come to the junior school in the afternoon. If a student wants to meet with a tutor for writing, reading, or math, they can do that. If a student is on a metro journey, a whole group of the kids may be out doing that. If mama, grandmama wants to come in because they're really good at, knitting, crocheting or something, they can come in and show the kids how to do that if the kids are interested. So it really is a university model with everyone managing their own time and being supported by the director and facilitator of each community.
Very good. So, you know what? Whenever you talk, it just generates more questions for me.
I got you.
But that's how I learn. So, what has been, you know, this is, you can appreciate this. Typically, everything is about quantifying learning, quantifying progress, and assessing, right? How is there any quantifying of progress? How do kids document their, like they set goals, maybe personal goals? How do they document what they've achieved or define success, or is that even necessary?
Great question. So on the documentation, let me do that one first. That's one of the 4 main problems with these types of schools, right? Lack of awareness, lack of diversity, lack of funding, and lack of documentation. So, one day I was in the hospital with my husband, and this was when we were unschooling. So I called home one day, and I mean, on the other side, sound like a whole circus, right? The kids were like, "Oh my gosh, mom, Zion did this and Sunday did that," and I'm like, "Okay, hold on, listen, can y'all write down what you're doing?" "Okay, mom, but I gotta go because." And so they get off the phone. Now we're living in Pennsylvania at the time, and I knew that at the end of that year there was going to be an evaluator that was going to come and evaluate us. And I knew that I needed to have something for it. And I knew that them jokers weren't going to write anything down, and they did not. So sitting there in the hospital room, I said, I wish there was a way that they could take their phone and take a picture or a video of whatever it is that they're doing and then write a brief narrative, like a narrative transcript, and save it. To which I heard God say, well, why don't you build that? I said, oh, okay. All right, I see that. I'm gonna do it. And so that's what I did back in 2017. I built that app. So that is one way that we document learning, especially for self-directed learners when there is no one central curriculum and everyone is decentralized and doing their own thing. Then how do you know what it is that someone has done? So that is the purpose of the app. But then to answer your other question about quantifying it, and I get this question a lot. Two responses very briefly. Number one, the student quantifies themselves. Meaning, my son who wanted to teach himself about rabbits, right? He wanted to raise rabbits. So he sat with his mentor. Knew nothing about it at first, zero knowledge. He scheduled time with his mentor, went and learned and saw his rabbit hutch and learned what he needed to learn. And now, sitting out back, we had three rabbits. One passed away yesterday, so now we're down to two. So now, if I ask my son, what did you learn about how do you care for your rabbits that you're raising? Now he can say, oh, you know what? I learned that when they, are not breathing correctly, that I need to do this. And so now he quantifies his own learning because it's for him anyway. So he sets a goal. So students can set a goal. What is it that you want to do? What are you using this knowledge for? And then now do you know how to do that? And that leads to the second point. We understand units, right? Especially in high school, it's all about your credits, right? And
Mm-hmm.
credits are nothing but a unit of time. Very smart man named Mr. Andrew Carnegie back in the late 1800s decided one day that he was going to create this thing called a Carnegie unit. Before he came up with this idea, this thing did not exist. Let me be clear, right? I'll let you all do your own research on exactly how he came up with that. It's fascinating. But now, because Andrew Carnegie said that everybody had to earn these credits, now I got parents asking me, well, how do we go about earning these credits? Okay, let's talk about what a credit is. A credit is simply a measurement of time. 120 or so hours spent on a subject will earn you one credit. Now, that one credit doesn't say diddly squat about whether or not you are competent. How do I know? When I was in college, I earned myself a one credit in world history. But guess what? I got a whole D in that class. Not competent at all, but I earned the credit. So, what is it that we really want? Is it competency? Is it useful and purposeful learning? Or do you just want to spend and waste some time and pay some money so that you can earn a credit? I say, while we're in this system where credits matter, then combine them with your purpose. Let your children figure out what their purpose is, what their genius is, and then learn how to count that as credit. So that at the end of accumulating all these credits, they at least have something that they're competent in, which I think is more important.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I think it's important to I think we've gotten so, and this is a public school, everything is about money now, so with these assessments and comparisons and everyone has to meet this certain standard and all of that, and it's financially driven in my opinion. Then parents constantly do worry about that because they want something that they feel like can translate to college or
Or
or the
job.
future.
I get
Yes,
it. Mm-hmm.
right. But um I'm gonna leave that there because that is a deep conversation in itself. But how is the Genius School finance? How have you been able to crowdfund? Because I think one of the biggest barriers in my mind um, is getting a building, right? Affording a building, a place that provides the opportunities for children. So, can you speak because you've had some speak about this because you've had some interesting, I feel like, and innovative ways of crowdfunding or getting money to finance the
You
Genius
know,
School.
it's always funny, an idea that people say, "Oh, you're so courageous," and I say, "Well." It's courageous when it works. Right now, it might be crazy. And I'm okay with that. I can start off with crazy. And then after it works, we can switch it over to courageous. So, to answer your question, again, that's one of the four main problems with these types of schools. And I want to be clear, the Genius School is joining the ranks of other schools that have been in existence for decades, right? Self directed learning schools are not new. However, how they've been funded in the past has been traditionally by parent paying tuition. Some of these schools, the maximum tuition is like $30,000 for some of them.
Wow.
Now, God bless those that can write that check, and God bless those that, for right now, they don't see how they can do that. So, one way that I sat and thought about how we can solve this problem is when we look at the building, the actual physical building that houses the Genius School, right? The idea is that parents need a place for their kids to go. And this pandemic that we just all experienced has really opened up the door to that, right? And so for parents that are saying, listen, I got to go back into my job, I need a place for them to go during the day. I thought about it and I said, well, if the building is one of the most important components of school, and then the people that are there with your children, right? Then how can we decentralize that funding? So I said, what if we can put more value in what happens in this building? And what if what happens in this building where the genius students gather is something that the larger community would also like to benefit from? And so I looked no further than my own six kids, and my two middle boys are science techie people, right? One on the tech side, one on the agricultural side. And so the science tech guy would love nothing more than a maker space for him to go to and attend every single day. So a maker space traditionally is made up of 3D printers and digital fabrication and all of that, right? And so I said, oh, what if the building itself could double as a maker space, as a co working space, of course, when COVID allows, or anything else that the community would see as valuable? So the idea is that the Genius School students use that maker space while they're in school. And then when they go home at the end of the day, that maker space, co working space, art, dance studio, whatever the community wants, is then used by the community in the afternoon for after school programming for other students and evening for adults as well, weekends and summertime. And so when people pay to be a part of whatever is also offered, that can go towards paying for the building. It can go towards paying for the director and facilitator. So that's one. A second one, remember I said it's crazy until it works, then it's courageous? Okay. So cryptocurrencies. Everybody, or at least a lot of people, are talking about cryptocurrencies. So if you know anything about crypto, you understand how it is a decentralized platform, right? By the way, our app that I'm talking about, a future iteration, once I build me up some funding, will back to blockchain, which means that as students make a documentation for their learning, it sits on the blockchain, which is an immutable record of what they've done. That also adds another degree of credibility and validity to their learning. But I digress. So, creating our own cryptocurrency is something that we will do. Right now, I am looking at using an already existing token. And I'm looking at guap in order to fund what we are currently working on. Now, here's what I know. I got a little boy downstairs right now playing Roblox. He done already done asked me for $20 USD to put in his Roblox world, where that $20 USD turns into 20,000 Roblox or whatever they call it, Robux, right? And in his Robux world, with my $20, now his 20 G's, he gets to do whatever he does with his in game currency. That is something that our children will experience as a reality when they become our age. So I say, why don't we create an in game currency for kids to use right now? So, distributing the funding of the building.
I'm sorry. I have these coughs, my blood pressure medicine.
Ooh, yeah, I got you. Take your time.
Goodness, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor about that. Okay,
Oh,
I'm ready.
you must be healing, healing and peace. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, creating a cryptocurrency and distributing the cost of the building throughout the community. In addition to that, nonprofit fundraising. And then my goal is for there to be little to no parent based tuition. I'm not there yet. Let me be clear. I'm
Mhm.
not there yet. We're working on it. Okay. We're working on it.
That is awesome. I think that is also truly innovative, and I think I'll just say this, and maybe I can. Well, I'll just say it. I think it's innovative, and I think it's important, especially because, again, not saying we're monolithic as a people, but you know, how many of us have 30,000 to devote to tuition every year? Some of us do, but the majority of us do not. And I think that is important because a lot of times we've been locked out of certain educational opportunities because of financing. So, what you're doing, trailblazing the financing, could impact the community nationwide or worldwide to make education not so exorbitant and out of reach for the everyday person. So I'm impressed.
You know what, Kendra? The best part is that this idea came to me to come through me, right? It is not mine. I'm simply just a conduit of this idea. And my ultimate goal is that the intention of the Genius School lives on in the hearts and minds of other people, so much so that the originator of the idea is forgotten.
Hmm.
That's what I'm working on. I'm working on fading to black. I'm working on being forgotten because the magic cannot be with me. The magic must be in this system and in the opportunity for others to be just as innovative. That's my intention. That if we gather enough people around this idea of the benefits of self-directed learning and then addressing energy on solving the problems, right? That someone else will catch that idea and someone else will additionally add to a solution, right? The solution is sitting in the brain of somebody else right now, right now. And it's simply a matter of someone saying, who wants to join me in solving this problem? So I'm inviting your listeners to join me in solving our four main problems with these types of schools: lack of awareness, lack of funding, lack of documentation. Yeah, and what was the other one? Lack of
Lack of
diversity.
diversity. Excellent. Thank you so much, Karima. As always, your conversation is just so engaging, it's powerful. And thank you for being courageous enough to step out and to do it because you are inspiring others to eventually to do the same.
Well, I appreciate you, Kendra. Thank you for pursuing this conversation, and thank you for your platform. I appreciate you.
Don't forget to click like and subscribe to be notified of future videos. Also, don't forget to check out my website, www.aheartforhomeschool.com.